Manthan Rastogi. I am aware of him and his research style because he is the co-founder of Alpha Wealth. But let me give a formal introduction. Manthan is the co-founder of Alpha Wealth Avenues, a SEBI registered RA firm, a graduate in electrical engineering from NIT. He brings over 5 years of experience in management consulting. Investing in the Indian stock market since 2017, he specializes in deep fundamental research, identifying businesses with strong management and a positive rate of change that can create compounding returns in the long term. Please welcome Manthan.
So thank you so much for coming in, guys. I think we had two lovely presentations. So today, what I will be discussing is not about only the stock idea, but mostly the story of niche businesses and what makes the business anti-fragile. So the word anti-fragile is basically termed by book is it's basically a book written by Nassim Taleb. And I think it's one of the interesting book I will discuss about later. So this is the standard disclaimer. I think we have seen this already in couple of presentation, but again, I just want to reiterate that nothing that I will say is a buy or sell recommendation, right? Then as we are a SEBI registered RA, so yes, then are have we have bought some shares of this company in last few months or years? Yes, right. Have we recommended it? As of now, no. So what this book by Nassim Taleb tells us, right? So the book name is Anti-Fragile, the things that gain from disorder, right? So there are certain companies or certain events that happens in which like the company basically benefits from shock. They thrive when they grow and when exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stress. And I would like to emphasize this part because the company that we will be covering, at one point of time, they have seen their 30% of their revenue in 2012 gone to zero in less than a maybe a year kind of way. So the company that I'm talking about is Shivalik Biometal Control, right? I think it's a well discovered story, and a lot of guys were covering this company in 2022, 23 kind of setup. But I feel the business is much stronger as on date today, and it was much stronger 6 months back at the valuation that it was trading. So what this company basically makes is, uh, it's slightly technical. So there are three products. One is thermostatic bimetal, then second is shunt resistors, and then one is electrical contact. Again, the individual TAM of these market is not huge, right? I will just discuss what thermostatic biometals means. So these are the critical equipment used in overload protection devices. So when we see, right, we have MCB at our homes. So there is a device that helps us in detecting if something is running faulty, and that cuts the system from and saves the all the equipments that we have is basically biometals. I will discuss later how this product look and how it is made. Second is shunt resistor. So it basically used to measure current that is flowing. And why we use shunt resistor there? Because of precision. It can even measure micro ampere of current that can flow into the system. And again, its application is only rising. It's basically used in EV, particularly in BMS, as well as it can be used at multiple places like energy storage systems, smart meters, power modules. And again, the company started doing R&D on this part, and we might see a lot of applications going forward. The third vertical here is electrical contact. It's the largest TAM the company portfolio has. So context is basically, I will explain you how these things look in the subsequent slide, and then there is plus one that you see. It's an additional business which recently started in FY26 as a part of R&D, and D, and it will commercialize soon, and the revenue will start coming from FY27. So why I was saying, the why I have given the example of anti-fragile in the entire presentation, the narrative will be around that. Sometimes number don't always tell the full story. You see, the business has been growing for 21, 23 around 40% CAGR, and that's when the maximum chatter of this stock was. There are few investors that I know have been investing in this company since 2018. But again, the real chatter when everyone started picking up this business and mentioned the quality business, which is not the dispute, because the sales price CAGR was 40% almost for 3 years. Now what happened since 23? The growth flattened down. The revenue CAGR was hardly 6 to 7%, and there was pertinent reasons why it was happening so. Because again, the company was dependent on one of the customer. It's a US customer, basically for their shunt business. The company name, the customer name is again well discovered by investors. It's Vishay. So they are the tier 2 suppliers which supplies to BMS in the electric vehicle kind of story. And why the growth rate here would be was higher, because electric vehicle adoption was growing in US. All the companies like Tesla, BYD, the growth rate was phenomenal during this period, and that's how the company got benefited. Shivalik also got benefited. Even after the slowdown of these 3 years, the last 10 years CAGR of the revenue growth is around 16%. And just a random fact, the company has already been 100x in last 10 years, or maybe 50 or more than that. But we still feel the business is better. So let me start with the business deep dive. The first business, we call it a mature business. Why mature business? Because the bimetals, the entire TAM of this bimetals is somewhere between 1500 crore. That our estimate. Again, as and when new use cases might start coming in, it can also increase. But so it's not a very huge TAM of this business globally, which basically helps them that there's no real competition in this business. There are certain other companies which are exiting this business because it's a small part of their business and they want to focus on their core operation. So what is bimetal? So this is the bimetal strip. So what this happens is these are two different metals joined together. It's not welded, it's not mixed together by melting it, so it's not an alloy. What it happen is it's basically diffused together. So they have a technological diffusion bonding process. So what they use is they basically join these metal under controlled heat and pressure so that atoms gradually merge together without materially impacting the conductivity of individual metal. And why this is important is how this work is there are two different metal, slightly technical. Every metal has their own temperature coefficient. So when it exposed to heat, one metal expands more than other. That's how this strip which was straight gets bended or maybe in different direction as the temperature changes. Why this helps is because in certain protective equipments like we have MCB, so when the current overflows, right, ideally that system need to be cut from the entire wiring and the equipments that we have in our house so that we do not have any happening there. So these are the materials which is used. So why I'm covering this? Because Siemens, CG Power, all the companies have announced large capex in switchgear. Basically, all the material is used. Biometals is basically used in switchgear part. Right? Global competition like EMS, Ephraim Alloys, they are the bigger companies, billion-dollar revenue companies. Biometals is a small business for them, so it's kind of non-strategic. So most of them they are exiting this business. Current revenue from this business is somewhere between 230 crore. The peak capacity that company already has is around 600 crore. What this tells you, it's a very high asset turn business. So the company can expand sales, but again, the fixed cost is already there. They do not need to do incremental capex for this business. Then I will discuss the second business, which is the most interesting business, shunt business later. Let's first cover contact business. So contact, what does contact basically means, right? So contact is basically a electrical connect. So when you switch on your button, right, you just switch the plastic button, right? But how the current flows, how your fan starts working, how your AC starts working, right? There should be some metal part that is closing or opening the circuit. And this is basically electric contact. So again, these are made from alloys. It could be copper, it could be silver, copper silver alloy. Depending on the use cases, different type of contacts are used. So this is the way how it works. So when the switch is off, the connection is open, so no electricity is flowing through it. When switch is off, sorry, when switch is on, the contacts are touched together, and that's how the circuit is completed and the current is flowing. Right? And this how this electricity flows. So this is how it works. I hope it is very, very clear. There are different types of contacts which is made by Shivalik. Again, they have acquired this business. They have acquired the tech from a American company called Checkon. It was a JV between them, and then they wanted to exit, and Shivalik acquired the 100% stake at a distressed valuation. So these are the different type of contact, and again used in different parts. So this contact is basically used in switches, relays. Again, we are hearing a smart meter story, right? Smart meter, most relays will be used in smart meter. Right? And there are different. Yeah. So as I mentioned, right, this was the one of the largest vertical, which a huge TAM. So somewhere between it's around $1 billion of global market, which is around 8,000 crore. Just for information, as we have discussed earlier, the company, the entire Shivalik bimetals revenue was around 500 crore, and it's been there for last 3 years. So as I explained, there was a JV with Checon, but they wanted to exit, so the company acquired 100% stake. But what was the interesting clause here? So when there was a JV, the Shivalik was restricted to sell the contact in the market where Checon was there, and Checon was there globally except Asia. That's why, and once this is exit, now Shivalik does not have any responsibility. They can sell in the export market also. That's why they have expanded their capacity 3 times in last 1 year, because they are also gung ho on the export business. So as in the shunt, the business that we see earlier of biometals, the company has around 110 crore of revenue in FY26, and they have 3 times the revenue capacity. That basically says the company need not to expand more on capex going forward. Right? These are the clientels, right? Again, Anchor, Honeywell, Havel, Siemens, Schneider, all of them buys from them. Now let's come to the main hero. The main hero is shunt vertical, and the main technology is electron beam welding. I have a video, I hope that runs, because again, we do not have a Wi-Fi connection here, so I will be using my mobile hotspot for that. So what shunt resistor basically does? Shunt resistor is used to measure or sense the flow of current. Right? So we need to understand everywhere we need to measure current, the shunt resistor will be used. It can measure the current in a low ohmic region. So I'm saying micron ampere of current can also be measured by shunt resistors, which cannot be measured by other technologies like Hall effect or maybe CT transformers. So it's a current measuring transformer which is used in higher power setup or high current setup. And basically it's used in electrical meters. 65% of current revenue is coming from automotive, which is BMS. Earlier it also goes in IC, but now as EV adoption is increasing, more and more shunt resistor will be used. So there are certain facts that an EV has 3 or 4 times the shunt resistor which is used in uh, electric vehicle, ICE vehicle. Also, shunt is basically a small part of the revenue. Where they are going is they are also forward integrating into the business. So I will explain that later. And then electric meters are there. So single phase meters is currently being used. The government is trying to push on smart meters. As we know, the government has already mentioned about 25 crores meter need to be installed in India. Everyone knows the execution is hardly happening, but yeah, that remains the opportunity for them. And this vertical can grow around at 20% CAGR. So now let's come to electron beam welding. Just a disclaimer: no other company in India has this technology for electron beam welding. So I will try to run an animation. Let me check if it's done. So there is no audio to this, but I hope we can check this. I will also try to explain it. So the welding is done in vacuum chamber. So what happens when we do when we join two metals, right? We need another metal to substrate kind of thing, and when it's heated, and then that additional metal get fill in between the joints of them. That what is happens is it changes the patterns or maybe the properties of both the metals when in the area of joint. But that thing is not there in electron beam welding. So air is evacuated, and the material which need to be joined is placed here in the vacuum chamber. There would be electron gun at the top. So beam of electron will be thrown on the metal part, on the joining part. So this is cathode, basically tungsten cathode, which generates electrons, then there is anode to excite the electrons so that it goes in a linear direction. So yeah, as it mentioned, it's a electron beam. Then this is lens where you want to focus the electron beam. This is the deflection coil, how you want to move the beam. And again, here the two work pieces that need to be welded could be different metals, three metals kind of way. So again, a simple thing how it is done. It is done in vacuum, so there is no air, no water particles which interface with the electron beam. So it's highly precise. So hole is done, and then a simple welding is can be done. So it's extremely fast. Again, this has been slowed by 20x for demonstration purpose. Just for the fact, I have been researching about this technology, and it mentioned that the laser welding that is used precisely in BMS, this technology is 10x faster than this. So the electron beam is 10x faster than laser welding in certain cases. So that's the part. I hope how electron welding is done super clear. So let me move to the next slide. Correct. The story here is battery management system. Again, the company has been there as a tier 2 supplier, that it supplies to company I mentioned Vishay. There are other companies which in that supplies to OEMs, right? The Mercedes, BYD, Tesla, then Indian domestic market is also there. In India, the EV adoption was pretty low, right? But as it start picking up, this unlocks a new TAM for Shivalik Biomet, right? So currently, as I mentioned, electric vehicle require two-wheeler electric vehicle require 2-3 more shunts as compared to the previous thing, and four-wheeler adoption will require 10 more shunts, right? And the company is not only providing shunt, it's also moving into assembly part, which will materially increase the TAM for the company. So the next part is smart meter story. So shunt resistor, as I mentioned, it used to measure current. Then so basically it goes into relay, and relays goes into smart meter. So what Shivalik Biometal does is they provide this to Genesis Power. Then Genesis Power again they are also into smart meter, but again they provide it to other companies. So their smart meter revenue is growing, has almost doubled in last 1 year, and they are guiding for similar growth for next 6 to 8 months. And again, if the execution start happening on ground, smart meter can be one of the story of this business. The entire business is not dependent on this story I'm just mentioning. What they are doing is they are forward integrating into automotive shunt. Earlier, they were just supplying strip from 2015. As I mentioned, it was a shunt strip. What it used to give to Vishay, then Vishay used to make components and then do assembly and provide it to OEM. It's a very obvious thing. The company should it's already started supplying components, and that's where the anti-fragility comes in. So in last 2 years, as we see, the Trump has raised tariffs on on India, right? So basically, imports from India was getting export from India was getting pretty expensive there. So what this management bargained with Vishay was, you don't make components in house. We will make components on your behalf. We will do white labeling on your behalf and directly export it to your client. That's how you can bypass the Trump tariff. And that's the opportunity they seized, and Vishay agreed, which was not agreeing for maybe last 2 years. And that basically raised their TAM by maybe on the realization by 10 to 15% within just this decision. Once they go into assembly, which I think they should, they have already launched the pilot in FY25, is still in development. So they already have tech. So again, the components has 2x value than strip and a superior margin, but assemblies has 10x more TAM or the per unit realization as compared to components. So if this thing ventures out, it is a huge optionality that might open for company. And again, the company basically prefers if everything is coming from them because they are making the shunt there, and it's one of the key components there. So again, this is the PCBA that I was trying to say. So it's a substrate material. These are components. This is tooling. So all of them joined together can be a PCBA assembly. Again, the company is developing smart DC current sensors. Again, they have their own proprietary shunt resistor. As I mentioned, electron beam welding. No other Indian company has that technology, and globally, 2 or 3 companies are there. The best part of Shivalik is they can manufacture EBW machines in house. So they do not need to buy these machines from outside, right? And that materially saves them the cost, right? And they have the process efficiency. They know the metallurgical part for last 15-20 years. So there is a lot of economies of learning in the business. So if someone maybe if 1 year down the lane wants to enter this business, cannot enter this business because it will take at least 2 to 3 years to master the technology, then 2 to 3 years to have certain checks, and then the OEM will start onboarding or start trying your device. So it's a very high entry barrier business. And as I mentioned, Shivalik has already started in. This is the new frontier. The new product that I was telling about is the EV bus bar. So what was happening earlier? All these batteries need to be joined together. Then it need to be moved to connected to BMS, because we need to measure how much current is flowing from individual cells. Earlier the wires was used, but wires have certain limitations. That's why I think the market is moving towards bus bars. Again, this bus bars should not be confused with the bus bars. If someone is from electrical engineering, it's also used in switch yards, which is a commodity. It's made directly from copper. These are the precision bus bars which will be used and welded on the cells and connected to BMS. And that's where the EBW scheme comes in. As I mentioned earlier, there is a research which is going on which mentioned that EBW welding is 10x more faster and has a better welding quality as compared to other things. So this will materially thing, and they started their facility in Pune. One more interesting thing, why I'm calling this business anti-fragile is the company is pretty adaptive. I will explain in the next slide. So it was based out of a small location in Himachal Pradesh. Now the company is coming to Pune. That speaks a lot of things about them. They are setting up the R&D facility. They have incurred the capex, and already this project, I think they are doing it with Bajaj, and they have guided for around 300 crore of revenue from this business. And in FY27 itself, 70-75 crore of revenue should start coming in from this business. Other optionality that may arise, again, Shivalik need to spend on R&D obviously, but where low current components will be used, current sensing, switching solutions. Again, it can be used in UPS. As the data center demand is increasing, lot of UPS would be required in India, power distribution unit. Then BESS is one important segment, because again batteries is used here also. So current sensing requirement will also be there. So again, going forward, all of these things can also be the uh, potential TAM for the business. And again, these are huge optionalities which is coming around. And Shivalik now is no more supplying only shunt resistor. They are moving into assembly, so that it could be one-stop solution for most of the businesses. So why I was calling the business resilient? As I mentioned, they have demonstrated resilience. In 2012, they are 30% of the revenue was coming from CRT, cathode ray tube, which was used in older TVs. When the advent of LED TVs or LCD TVs started, that business got to zero within a year. At 30% of your revenue going down to zero in a year, and then you come back, goes into shunt resistor in a small niche market, that speaks a lot about management. Clear promoter structure. So earlier there were two families running this business, Sandhu family and Goman family. The Sandhu family basically exited this business entirely in 2024, and then Goman family, again the old promoter, the father of them, they have retired. Now the young leadership is coming in. It's Kabir and Suman. Again, they have I'm just mentioning about young, but they have around in the business for 15 years. So these are the second generation, and now they are charging this business, moving to Pune, spending on R&D, going into assembly. Speaks a lot about where they want to head this business to, and they have skin in the game. So when the company was exiting, again there was only 25% stake. Then they increased it to 33 and 610 rupees. Recently, also in May, the Kabir or someone of them started buying the company. So again, promoter activity is there. Disciplined capital allocation. The company has not moved into low margin business where a lot of competitors are there. They can easily do to increase revenue because they have free cash flows. I will show you the numbers in the next slide. Till now, I have not talked about any numbers other than revenue or the potential. So they have been very, very prudent with their capital allocation where they want to allocate their capital. So let's see story in the charts. Again, this is, we have one template and we have just got these numbers from there. So sales has been increasing, EBITDA is increasing, OCF cash flow positive is there. They are also generating free cash flow. That means their capex, whatever capex requirement they have, they can fund it through internal accruals. They are also generating free cash flow. This is what you mean. They have spent it heavily in last 3-4 years on the capex, if you see materially, right? And that will start yielding the benefit going forward. And again, the company has maybe 5x the sales, but that has not increased much, again, because they have a strong internal accrual and their asset turns is very high. So what is on card? What is the catalyst? Why I'm discussing now, or why I've been discussing or reading this company for last 6 months? Ramp up in sub-assembly. So there was a slowdown in US, basically from Vishay in 24-25, that led to the slowdown in business. But again, in the recent con call, the management is guiding the Vishay volumes would be somewhere between FY 23-24, and then can materially increase from there. They are no more a simple strip supplier. They are the component supplier now for Vishay also. So that also lead to increased sale realization. Pune plant commercialization is happening. They've spent 20 crores. Then they already have order from Bajaj and I think Ola is there. Right? They will be targeting four-wheeler business also with increasing their R&D facilities. Then there is new vertical activation, as I mentioned, can happen. BESS, another team can start picking up. So just few numbers. Again, I do not want to crunch numbers here. It's your work to do, and maybe you are free to do and how you want to evaluate. I just want to tell you the business. So the shunt business actually is around 230 crore. We expect easily 25% growth from there. And bimetal similarly 11%, context 20%. I am just saying because they already have capex for this. So company do not need to incur any additional capex to reach this revenue. Just to mention, the peak revenue utilization that company can have is somewhere around 1600 crore from these verticals, right? So we think it should grow at around 25% for next few years and maybe a lot more years going forward. So with every story comes the risk. What is your main thesis pointer can be the risk sometimes. We have already seen it. Electric vehicle adoption is slower than expected, which can certainly be the case because there is a push for 2 years in US and then again streamlined. It has not grown to the thing that it should be. So electric vehicle adoption growing slower is one of the risks. They do not get customer qualifications because they are trying to venture into two-wheeler, four-wheeler assemblies, right? There might be they do not get qualified. In customer concentration risk, we have already seen it with Vishay. We have already seen with cathode ray technology, which comes into technological disruption. Again, customer concentration will be there because there are not many players there. So if any company goes through the slowdown in export market, especially, that can have a slowdown in this. But again, I think all of these risks maybe impact the business in short term, but over medium to long term thing, I think the company is well poised. The final slide, I will close my thesis. Again, it's a long presentation. You have seen the data, you know what to do. Go and do your own study here. And simple thing. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.